Hey, welcome to Tabletop Skirmish Games. I'm Lee, and in this video we'll be taking a deep dive into the Nurgle Rotbringers for Warcry. In a previous video we did a deep dive on the demons of Nurgle, but now it's time to look at the other half of the Maggotkin of Nurgle and look at the Rotbringers. So in this video we'll be using the Warcry Agents of Chaos book as our guide. We'll have a brief introduction to the warband and to the faction, just so we can find out a little bit of background about them, and then we'll have a look at the Rotbringers fighter and leader abilities, and then go through all of the fighter cards available for that faction, looking at all the models that you can buy online at the Games Workshop website. Nurgle is the Lord of Despair, the pustulant god of entropy and rot. Wherever the mortal and demonic children of the Plague Lord walk, sickness and death are sure to follow. Nurgle is revered as a loving father god by communities of outcasts, the diseased and the destitute across the realms. Grandfather Nurgle, as the Plague Lord is often affectionately known by his followers, is empowered wherever mortals succumb to hopelessness and despair. And Nurgle's creed is one of bleak acceptance and comfortable numbness of wallowing in misery rather than striving to better one's circumstances. In the mortal realms, where the spirits of so many cultures were brutally crushed during the horrific trials of the Age of Chaos, the worship of Nurgle finds fertile ground indeed. All manner of vile creatures pledge allegiance to Nurgle, from outcast beastmen to colonies of abandoned lepers and pox-ridden, but it is the Rotbringer contagions who form the finest and most beloved mortal armies of the Plague Lord. These warriors, bloated with foulness and dripping with disease, revel in their grandfather's favour, typically exhibiting a bleak gallows mirth as they desecrate the land and hew through fragile foes. Putrid Blight Kings form the foot soldiers of the Rotbringers. Though they are few in number, each of these rancid warriors has been so blessed by Nurgle that they are the equal to 7 lesser men, capable of shrugging off all but the most terrible blows as they swing their befouled weapons. Some Blight Kings rise even higher in Nurgle's favour, taking on the mantle of a mighty champion or soaring to battle upon the back of a terrifying, unnatural beast known as a Rotfly. Of all the Chaos gods, it is perhaps Nurgle who has the greatest interest in conquering the 8 points. The island between realms is a continent-sized laboratory for the incubation of new diseases, while the archways themselves are fine vectors through which to transmit these gifts across the mortal realms entire. Large areas of Karngrad are little more than disease-ridden slums, and here the followers of Nurgle thrive. More and more inhabitants of that cursed city are brought into the grandfather's sickly embrace with each turning of the crimson moons. It's said that these degenerates are ruled over by being known as the Weeping Proctor, though none of the agents sent into the most blighted areas of the city by the talons of Karngrad have been able to garner more than rumours regarding this enigmatic figure. Indeed, many of them do not return at all. There we go, so there's a brief introduction to the Maggotkin of Nurgle, and so we can imagine how the Rotbringers are going to fit into the world of Warcry. So now let's move on and start looking through those fighter cards and abilities, and we'll start by looking at the fighter abilities for the Nurgle Rotbringers, and any member of the warband with their rune mark for the Rotbringers will be able to use these fighter abilities. So we're going to get 2 fighter abilities for the Nurgle Rotbringers, and it's these abilities that really give us a good idea of how the warband are going to function tactically, and kind of gives us an idea narratively about how we might want to play our Rotbringer warband. So let's start with the first ability, and this is a double called Virulent Discharge. And with this we pick a visible enemy fighter within 1 inch of this fighter, and then roll a number of dice equal to the value of this ability. For each 4+, allocate 1 damage point to that fighter. So this is a nice one. We really get the idea that we're letting off this kind of toxic rot that's going to affect all the enemies, and so this is a really nice ability that all the fighters in the warband can choose to use if they want to. So a great start, but we've also got this quad called Unnatural Regeneration. A fighter cannot use this ability if they are within 1 inch of any enemy fighters. Remove a number of damage points allocated to this fighter equal to double the value of this ability. So they also get this idea that they can regenerate and heal themselves, and so this is a really strong one for a quad as well. Again, accessed by any fighters with the Rockbringer rune mark, and they can get double the value of this ability, remove that many damage points. So that's a huge. If you get 6, you can remove 12 damage points with this. So this is a mad ability, and for a quad, for any of them to use, I think it's just really strong. Next, we've got our leader abilities, and there's only one ability that all the leaders with the Rockbringer rune mark and the leader rune mark are able to use, and this is a triple called Grandfather's Blessing. And until the end of the battle round, add 1 to the strength characteristic of attack actions that have a range characteristic of 3 or less made by friendly fighters while they are within 6 inches of this fighter. Okay, so this is a pretty simple one for the leader. He empowers everyone close enough to him with that extra strength, and that extra strength is going to give them more opportunities and a more chance of inflicting damage on the enemy. So this leader ability, all the leaders we look at in a moment as we go through the fighter cards will be able to use this, so I won't go through it each time, but just bear in mind that they can use it. Right, now let's move on and start looking at each of the models that are available to us from Games Workshop, and it starts with the Lord of Plagues. This guy's coming in at straight £10, and for that £10 you're just going to get this one figure, and he's going to come in at 205 points. You're going to get a movement of 3, toughness 4, and he can take 32 wounds. He's got the leader rune mark and the faction rune mark as well. And then for the weapon, this is this big axe with a range of 1. He can make 3 attacks, strength 5, dealing 3 to 5 on a crit. So for a leader with just that one ability, I always like to take a leader that's got more than that. So having that one is quite limited, and that Grandfather's Blessing we just saw earlier, it's not a brilliant ability either. So if that's the only one that's available to him, then I probably wouldn't choose this Lord of Plagues as my leader. And I think we've got some really nice options as we work through the rest of the fighters later on. But if you do want someone who's strong and can deal a fair bit of damage, then perhaps this is the leader for you. Right, now we're on to our next leader, which is the Lord of Blights. And this is a bit more expensive at £17.50 for just one model. A lot bigger. It's temporarily out of stock at Games Workshop, but it's certainly available at other retailers online. And I'll put links in the description below later so that you can find those and also get up to 20% discount too. I really like this model, and I think as a leader figure, this one is certainly going to stand out a lot more than the Lord of Plagues. He's going to be a little bit more expensive point-wise. He's going to come in at 210 points. He's got that movement of 3, toughness is 5, can take 32 wounds. He's got the leader rune mark and the bulwark rune mark, so we're going to get another ability we haven't seen yet for our leader. His weapon with that hammer is a range of 1, can make 3 attacks, strength 4, dealing 2 to 5 on a crit. So he's not as strong as the Lord of Plagues, but he's tougher because he's got this shield, and he certainly looks a lot better. But for 5 extra points, we're going to get this other ability, which is a double called Thrice Ripened Death's Head. Pick a visible enemy fighter within 6 inches of this fighter and roll 2 dice. For each 4 to 5, allocate 1 damage point to that fighter. For each 6, allocate a number of damage points to that fighter equal to the value of this ability. Okay, so for a double, this is alright, but it's not a really strong ability. You can roll 2 dice against 1 enemy fighter. You're going to get a 50% chance of actually doing any damage, and from that, only a 4 or 5 is going to be 1 damage. But for every 6, you can allocate the number of damage points equal to the value of the ability. So you want a higher ability value here, 5 or 6, but really the chances of getting that aren't brilliant. I think only rolling 2 dice isn't that great. So for me, it's not a brilliant ability here, and I don't really like the triple all that much either. So let's wait and see what some of these other leader options are going to bring us ability-wise. Our next leader option are these guys, the Lord of Afflictions. And so you get 2 in this box set for £40, and you can also build them as Pascal Blightlords, but you could choose to have 1 leader and 1 hero and take 2 Lord of Afflictions in if you wanted to. And they're going to set you back 290 points. They've got a better movement now at 6, toughness 4, and can take a lot more wounds at 42 wounds. They've got the leader rune mark, they can fly, and they've also got this skull rune mark as well. That's not for a leader ability though, that's going to be for a fighter ability, but we haven't seen that one yet, so we'll find out more about that in a second. And with the weapon with this, we've got this longer range weapon, this fork, this pitchfork looking thing. This is a range of 2, 4 attacks, strength 4, dealing 3 to 5 on a crit. So some decent movement there. Can also fly, can take a ton of wounds and do a little bit of damage there, which isn't bad at all. But let's see what this ability is going to bring to this model and see if it's worth those 290 points. And this is a double called Venomous Sting. And for this, we pick a visible enemy fighter within 1 inch of this fighter and roll a dice. On a 2+, until the end of this battle round, that fighter cannot make move actions or disengage actions. Okay, so for a double, this is pretty handy. If the enemy have got a strategic fighter that they need to move around, you can just pin them down and they can't make move or disengage actions. So you can even keep them involved in the fight and then keep barraging them with your stronger fighters. So a pretty decent ability there. Our next leader is a Rockbringer Sorcerer, and you can pick this model up for £10, and I think this is a great looking model. I really like the mystical kind of sorcerer shaman figures, so having this as a leader option could be pretty good. But let's have a look at the fighter card. So our Rockbringer Sorcerer is our lowest point leader at 165 points, got movement 3, toughness 3, can take 22 wounds. Got the leader rune mark and the mystic rune mark, so we're going to get another leader ability we haven't seen yet. And then we've got 2 weapon options, which is typical of kind of your mystical leader. The first one is this ranged weapon, 3 to 7 inches, can make 2 attacks, strength 3, dealing 3 to 6 on a crit. So that's normal, we see that with all the mystic figures pretty much. And then we've got another one with this staff, we've got a range of 2, 3 attacks, strength 3, dealing 1 to 4 on a crit. So you're not going to do a huge amount of damage with this one. The movement isn't great, not tough, not very strong, can take a decent amount of wounds, but I think it's this ability that you'd want to include this as your leader with, and also to reduce the points so you can maybe take in some higher point fighters. So let's have a look at that ability now, and this is a double called Stream of Corruption. Pick a visible enemy fighter within 9 inches of this fighter and roll a number of dice equal to the value of this ability. For each 5+, allocate 1 damage point to that fighter, and until the end of the battle round, subtract 1 from that fighter's toughness characteristic to a minimum of 1. Okay, so this is okay for a double. We've got that 9 inches, which is a good amount of distance, certainly on a Warcry board. You know, you can cover a good section of the board with that 9 inches. And so you can pick out an enemy. You want to get a 5 or 6 value for this ability for sure. And then for every 5+, you're going to allocate a damage point, but you're also going to reduce their toughness. And so you can subtract 1. And I believe you can only subtract 1. So it's not like with the damage allocation where it's 1 point for every 5+. I think with the toughness subtraction, it's only once. You only subtract 1 no matter how many 5+s you roll. But still pretty good. I think getting that toughness down is great, and really weakening those opponents. And again, a key strategic enemy fighter can really suffer from this and be hindered in their attacks. So really nice, and I think this is a good option if you want a lower point leader for your warband. Now we're on to another leader, the Harbinger of Decay, and this is a great looking model. Having this mounted figure is really cool. I think this would make a great leader visually. Price wise, you're looking at £23.50 though for this one model. It's going to obviously be a little bit bigger than the others and certainly have more presence on the battlefield, but this guy's going to come in at 195 points, so not too expensive. He's got a nice movement of 6, he's got a toughness of 4, can take 25 wounds, he's got the leader rune mark, the Screaming Skull rune mark, and he's got the mounted rune mark. So we're going to get an ability that we haven't seen yet, and that is another leader ability too. And with the weapon, it's this side weapon, so we've got a range of 2, can make 3 attacks, strength 4, dealing 2 to 4 on a crit. So you're not going to do a massive amount of damage here. It's not overly strong, not overly tough, but that movement is really nice. Having 6 movement and 25 runes is really good. But let's see what this ability is going to bring, because this really could be key as to whether or not we choose this leader. And his ability is a triple called Rot Sword Stab. And this fighter can make a bonus attack action that has a range characteristic of 3 or less. If that bonus attack action scores any critical hits, roll a dice. On a 4+, subtract 1 from the move characteristic to a minimum of 1 of the target fighter for the rest of the battle. Right, so being able to reduce that move characteristic of a target fighter for the rest of the battle is very appealing, but there's a bit of work we've got to do first. I mean, it's great being able to have a bonus attack, so that's really good. And the range characteristic of 3 or less we qualify for right away, so that's really good. And then we have to get a critical hit though. So you know, you've got to get a critical hit. You're only rolling 3 dice, so you've got to get a 6 out of those 3 dice, and then you've got to get a 4+. So you've got a little bit of work to do, but I think if you can make it happen, this would be a really good ability to use and could certainly, again, have an effect on those key enemy fighters. Now we're on to our 6th and final leader, and this is the Putrid Blightkин Blightlord. And you pick this guy up in a pack of 5 Putrid Blight Kings for £35. Again, you can save 20% on these with the links I put in the description. So this is a nice option, and this is one I think you really need if you want to play the Rotbringers. And the Blight King, if you do choose him as your leader, then he's going to come in at 190 points. He's got a movement of 3, toughness 4, can take 30 wounds. And then that weapon option, again, it's a range of 1, can make 4 attacks, strength 4, dealing 2 to 5 on a crit. So not a huge amount going on here. You know, you get those 30 wounds, which is nice. But other than that, nothing much is standing out. But for 190 points, I think you pretty much get what you pay for there. And ability-wise, we're only going to get that 1 leader ability that we saw earlier in the video, the triple Grandfather's Blessing, and of course you can also use the regular fighter abilities, the double Virulent Discharge and the quad Unnatural Regeneration. Now we're going to move on to our regular fighters, and this set of Putrid Blight Kings gives us 5 different fighters that we can choose from, and one of those is the leader we just saw, that Blightlord. So a really good value set, I think definitely worth getting. So from that set you can build this Putrid Blight King with Blighted Weapon, and this one's going to come in at 135 points, movement 3, toughness 4, can take 25 wounds. You've got a weapon range of 1, 3 attacks, strength 4, dealing 2 to 4 on a crit. So not bad for the points there, fair bit of damage output, can take a lot of wounds, but no extra abilities other than the double and the quad that we've already looked at for our fighters. From the set you can also build the Putrid Blight King with Filth Encrusted Shield, and it's a little bit more points value, 145, and for that you get the same movement 3, same 25 wounds, but we get a little bit extra toughness for that shield, so toughness is 5. Weapon is a range of 1, we can only make 2 attacks, strength 4, dealing 2 to 4 on a crit. So where we get a little bit extra in toughness, we lose in the number of attacks we can make, and again, no extra abilities other than those 2 regular fighter abilities. Then we're on to the Putrid Blight King with Sonorous Toxin, and this is 145 points, movement 3, toughness 4, 25 wounds. We've got this flail weapon, which is a range of 2. You can make 4 attacks with this, strength 4, dealing 1 to 4 on a crit. We've also got this champion rune mark we haven't seen yet, so we're going to get a fighter ability that's new. So this is pretty good for 145 points, having that range of 2. 4 attacks is good, strength good, take a nice amount of wounds. The output isn't great in damage, but 1 to 4 is not bad at all when you're rolling 4 dice. But let's have a look at this ability, and this is a double called Toll the Sonorous Toxin, and until the end of the battle round we add 1 to the move characteristic of move actions made by friendly fighters that start within 6 inches of this fighter. So this isn't bad at all. We can really start moving those fighters forward just by putting them close enough to this one. So I think for a double, this is a great way to improve on the movement of the Rotbringers, because they are pretty low. Most of them are 3 unless they're mounted or flying. So if we can improve that a little bit, that's really going to help. Getting these guys in amongst the fight, I think, is going to be key. We want to get them stuck in, and so this one here is certainly going to help us do that. Now we're on to the 5th fighter that we can use from this box set. So great value here, and it's going to come in at 140 points. Movement 3, toughness 4, can take 25 wounds. We got the Icon Bearer rune mark, so we're going to get an ability we haven't seen yet. And then for the weapon, it's a range of 1 with this sword, 3 attacks, strength 4, dealing 2 to 4 on a crit. So very similar to the Putrid Blight King that we saw with the Blighted Weapon, but this one's going to get another ability. So for an extra 5 points, I think it's got to be worth including this one in your warband, because getting that ability can be really important. So let's have a look at what it is. And this ability for a fighter ability is a triple called Blighted Icon. And until the end of the battle round, we add 1 to the toughness characteristic of friendly fighters while they are within 6 inches of this fighter. So again, another one that's improving the fighters around them, get them close enough, and they're going to get that extra 1 to their toughness, which is going to really help these guys. Toughness 4 is okay. If we can bring them up to a toughness 5, even better. And then helping our leaders, and the Blight King with Filth Encrusted Shield getting up to a 6 is going to be even stronger. So really handy ability here. It's a triple, so you could certainly imagine using that a couple of times during the game. And so I think this is another one that we really want to be included in our warband. Now we're on to our final fighter option, and this is the Pascal Blightlord. And this set is the £40 set that we saw previously for the Lord of Afflictions. So you've got options to build them in different ways. So you can have a leader and a regular fighter, a leader and a hero, or 2 regular fighters. And the regular fighters are called Pascal Blightlords, and these come in at 245 points. They've got the movement 6, toughness 4, can take 40 wounds. They've got the flight rune mark and that skull rune mark. Their weapon is a range of 2, making 4 attacks, strength 4, dealing 2 to 5 on a crit. So they're not all that far off the Lord of Affliction. They're only losing 2 on the amount of wounds they can take, and their damage output is 2 to 5 instead of 3 to 5. So for 45 points less, I think these are a really great option. And ability wise, they come with the venomous sting that we saw earlier when we looked at the Lord of Afflictions, and they can fly. So I think for 245 points, we've got to sneak one of these into the warband. I think it would be awesome. Now we've covered the 11 different leader and fighter types available for the Rotbringers. There's a few other models that I think we could use, and a few other sets that would certainly save some money and get us started really quickly if we wanted to build a warband. And so we can pick out this Gut Rot Spume figure for £16 if we like the look of this one. And I think this would be a great model just to simply proxy with either a Putrid Blight King with Filth Encrusted Shield, or even as a Lord of Plagues. If you want a more interesting looking model for your Lord of Plagues, then I think this would be a great one to choose. So that's one other figure available on the Games Workshop website. But now we've got this box set, and this is the Start Collecting Maggotkin of Nurgle for the Rotbringers. And this is £60, but with those discounts I put below, you can get this with up to 20% off, making it really appealing. And it's packed with miniatures and the perfect way to get started, not just for a regular warband, but also points-wise, enough to take you into narrative play. So you can see here with the points, we're going to get a maximum of 1450 and a minimum of 1405. So the most we can take into campaign narrative play is 1400. So this box set has got you set right up, and you can start playing straight away and getting stuck in. And here's the options I've put for the different layouts. So you could pick your Lord of Blights that's included as your leader, or you could use him as a hero and choose a Lord of Affliction or a Putrid Blight King Blightlord as your leader. And so you've got some options there. Alternatively, if you go for the Lord of Blights as your main leader, you can have a Lord of Affliction or a Putrid Blight King Blightlord as a hero. And so that's one option that you can go with. You don't have to do that, because of course you could just use them as Goyle Blightlords, or use them all as different Blight Kings. So you've got tons of options here. You could literally have a Lord of Blights as your leader, take 2 Pascal Blightlords, and then have 5 different Blight Kings. So I think value-wise, if you can get this for £48, this is going to set you up for everything you need to play Warcry as a warband. And so you wouldn't need anything other than the book, and then you're good to go. So a really good option. You get a load of points in this, and a load of different ways to mix up and play around with the different fighter types. But there's a couple of others that we can have a look at too. So let's move on and look at those now. So this next set is an Underworld set, and this is from Beastgrave, and these are called the Wormspat. And I think these are really good ideas to use as proxies, and I love the Underworld sets. I think they're fantastic for adding some unique looking fighters and proxies to your Warcry warbands. So I think this is a really good option, and I think having the leader of this shamanistic kind of sorcerer figure, you could certainly proxy that as a Rockbringer Sorcerer, then you can add that mystical element to your warband, and then just simply use the other 2 as Putrid Blight Kings, and then just looking at the different stats, seeing where they'd fit in. Like the one with the long spear is going to have that longer range, so he would make sense to be a sonorous toxin, so something like that. So these are a good way to give a little bit of variety to your warband. And if you look at the total points here, I think if I wanted to put together 1,000 points to get started, combining that get started collecting box with the Warhammer Underworlds box, you've got tons of options. And then I would go with a Lord of Blights for my leader. I'd take the Rockbringer Sorcerer in as a hero figure. Then I'd take 1 Pascal Blightlord, so I've got that extra movement and that flight ability. That's really good. And then I would take the Sonorous Toxin Blight King to make use of his ability. I'd also take in the Icon Bearer Blight King, because we get that other great ability from him too. And then I'd probably choose to go with the Blight King with Blighted Weapon, just to get those extra attacks that deal a little bit more damage. So I think getting started with that is a real nice varied way, and you get to use a whole host of abilities. So if you like to use lots of different abilities, then this is a really good way to go. And I think you can't go wrong with these Underworld sets, combining them with start collecting sets too. There we go, so that covers our Maggotkin of Nurgle Rotbringers deep dive, and I think we get a really nice amount of fighters to choose from that makes it really easy for someone wanting to get started. But I'd love to know what you think about the Rotbringers. Do you play them, and is there something about them that you like the most? Have you got a favourite ability, that kind of thing? So I'd love to hear your thoughts, so let me know in the comments section below. It'd be great to hear from you. I'll put a link in the description below to Element Games so you can pick up everything we've looked at in this video with up to 20% off. So a great way to make some good savings and get started, certainly on this start collecting set. And there'll be affiliate links, but it doesn't cost you extra. In fact, you save that money, and for every sale made through a link, you also support the channel too, as I get a small commission. So thanks so much for that. It's really cool, and I really appreciate it. I really enjoy making these deep dive videos, and I hope you enjoy watching them too. But every time I do one, I just want to get more figures. So I don't know if it's a good idea or not. But thanks so much for watching. Please like if you like it, subscribe for more videos like this, and don't forget to hit the notification bell to join me next time on Tabletop Skirmish Games. If you like this kind of content and would like to support the channel, then please check out my Patreon page, and thanks to everyone who's joined so far. It's really awesome. We hang out on Discord, talk about the hobby, share ideas and help each other out, and you'll get some perks there that you're not going to find anywhere else. So I'll put a link in the description, and it'll be great to see you there.